Soteria-Alaska, first off, it had some unique funding from the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority to get it going, and then government support as part of the program. And then there was some Medicaid billing, but Medicaid is so kind of counter to the whole principles of Soteria that's somewhat problematic. But Susan, I think maybe you could probably flesh this out a little bit more.
Sure. So as Jim said, we did have unique funding, which would have been a grant from what's called the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority. That was the biggest chunk. The Medicaid funding, we did bill under in the US, it's called the rehab option, but that was only about 7% of our funding. And then the other part of funding came from some, I don't know how to describe it. It's state funding, but it's specifically for room and board for particular kinds of group homes. And that was our second biggest chunk of, well, after the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority, we were able to get funding through the state, and that became the biggest chunk. And then, but we supplemented to cover costs with this kind of housing, room and board funding that came our way per each person. That was the benefit of us becoming licensed, is that funding became available to us if we got licensed and we're a not-for-profit. We had minimal fundraising. In retrospect, I would think about, one thing I learned is what I would think about is ensuring that some board members were actually good fundraisers and could get, because usually that's flexible funding. If somebody makes a donation, that's usually pretty flexible. And so I would suggest that, but in my mind, it's always good to have a blending in case one goes away, you still have some of the other funding.
Yeah, and I might just add, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Susan, but I think the implication of the question was that you don't get private insurance funding is correct. I don't think we ever got any, let alone significant private insurance company reimbursement.
So that's interesting, because I always think of Medicaid as like an insurance also. So I was thinking Medicaid, but no, we never got private insurance. I believe there's more flexibility in a managed care system, including the profit-making insurance companies and the Medicaid managed care, but Alaska doesn't have managed care. And I think other countries other than the US, more civilized countries, have more flexible healthcare. And I think that's an easier system to navigate because there's more flexibility. It's not a fee for service like ours was. So.